Okay, so we're reviewing place value, the place value system for whole numbers and introducing decimal fractions. Okay, so I'm looking at something here, place value houses, that I'm thinking you guys should be pretty familiar with. And I'm going to have a look at this first house here, and it's called the Trendsetter. The Trendsetter house is like when your friend comes to school, it's got really cool shoes that really like, and then all of a sudden everybody else comes to school with those shoes. That first person set that trend. Okay, so if I'm looking at this number here, I have ones, tens, and hundreds here. So the way we say this is 123. But we move to the next house, we put in that comma there. And this is the thousands house. And it still has 100s, tens, and ones. And if I put a number in here, I would say this 123,000, name that house, 123. If I move again, I would do the same thing. If I'm naming it, I say 123 million, 123,000, 123. And again, that same pattern, 123 trillion, 123 million, 123,000, 123. And now I want you to have a look. There's the decimal. Okay, and now I'm looking at these two, this house right here. And I want you to just have a quick peek and just see what is the difference between this house and the Trendsetter house. And you should be noticing, hopefully, two things. Okay. So what I'm hoping you notice is that there is no ones column. There's only two columns here. There's the tenths and the hundredths. And then also it goes backwards from the Trendsetter house. So it's almost like a reflection. So it starts going backwards. So the tenths and the hundredths. Okay? And if we look at this and we try to say it, it's 123 decimal, you can say 1, 2, or you could say decimal 12 hundredths. Okay, now looking here, and we're going to predict how the houses will repeat. Okay, so they'd be ones, tenths, hundredths, so they go back to that, and then they will go thousands, millions, trillions, and they'll just keep going. But notice the THS at the end, and you say th, okay, when you go that direction. So tongue between the teeth, it's very actually tricky. Okay, so this number here, 4,183. The 4 then would be in thousands. The 8 would be in hundreds. The 10 in the ones, and the 8 in the tens, and the 3 in the ones. And if we're looking at those place values, and we're thinking about thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones, and how they compare to each other numerically. So I'm thinking to myself, like, how many hundreds are there in 1,000? Okay, so to move from one to the other, okay, if we're thinking about like our regrouping strategies and stuff, okay, there's 10 hundreds in 1,000. And if we go to tens and we're asking how many tens in 100, same thing, there's 10 tens in 100. And if we're going from 1 to tens, again, there's 10 ones in tens. Okay, so why is this important? Because as we move along between the different place values, we're going by tens, and that makes the connection to why decimal fractions will always have either 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, okay, like as their denominator. because they're telling you where that number sits on their place value. What house did we make it to? Okay, so if I'm reading across these digits that I have down here, I'm thinking about what number, like what fractions are going to be classified as decimal fractions. Okay, mathematicians call them decimal fractions because they convert to decimals really easy. Okay, so those numbers that have 10, 100, 1,000, million as a denominator. So looking across here clearly, 3/10, 42 hundredths. Okay, 7/9 is very obviously not. I'm going to skip this one for a second. Okay, half is not. And I skip this one too. 3/4 is not. 1,000 is. Okay, same as 1 trillion. If we go back to these ones here, and I have 10/50th, even though I could very easily make this into 100, this number by itself is not classified a decimal fraction. Okay, and I can very easily multiply these by 2 to get that decimal fraction, but this one by itself is not classified. Same as this one. Okay, multiplied by 5, I could very easily end up with 1,000 as my denominator. Okay, but it is not sitting as it is a decimal fraction. Okay, so I just have a quick little exercise for you to do on the worksheet, and then the next video.